I'm good. We're live. I'm curious because the last two times our live stream hasn't hit Twitter or um, Farcaster. So I reset all the connections today, and let's see if anything's happening.
Well,
yes, we are. We are on Twitter. Let's see if Pine picked up. Not that anybody cares. Anyway, what's going on?
Well, got all kinds of cool new toys we've been playing with that we can tell people about.
Yeah.
You know, I'm miserable over my Bitcoin portfolio.
Well, I think everyone's a little bit sad at the moment around that, but it is what it is.
So, what have you run across in the news this week?
Thanks for the prompt.
I mean, I've got some stuff I can show if you're.
No, I got it. I'm loading it up. All
right.
Screen. Window. This. Okay. All right. So, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen.
All right. Unfortunately, this is MCP based, but I really love this idea. It's a tool that will automatically pull in up-to-date docs for code that you're working with and insert it into the context of the agent or LLM that you're interacting with, which I thought was pretty cool. It's called Context 7. Unfortunately,
it's interesting that they made a whole tool for that. I've seen Copilot and Claude Code both of their own accord go track down the GitHub site for a project and pull the docs out.
Yeah. I think it's kind of cool that it'll just, I mean, I assume you establish like connections to the GitHub or the API or whatever, and there's some document repository or somewhere, or you can load your own repositories, whatever. But I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's a religious issue for people. I refuse to mess with MCP because I think it's ultimately not how things get done. So
yeah, I agree. Totally agree. And I think, we're seeing more and more articles about that. I should have snagged that the other day. I saw a really good article talking about how the agents that exist that are not Kilroy, like Open Claw or Claude or whatever, that there are skills and plugins now that will allow you to load all kinds of command line interfaces and access and utilize them. So there's like this growing work to take APIs and other categories of functionality that you want your agent to be able to access and turning them into CLI because that's the only way those agents can interact, right?
You know, I mean, they'll eventually get to where we got right out of the gate, which is talking to the things with natural language. The tools need to talk with natural language too.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, all the arguments that pass between tools and Kilroy are just plain text.
Yep.
And if you can't write enough code to structure the arguments on the way in or on the way out, I guess you could ask for help from your AI.
That's right.
I mean, they don't need the structure that MCP enforces. And I'll tell you, just after, and I'm skipping ahead, we're gonna come to this in a minute, but the work of teaching these AIs how you work internally in your code is greatly complicated the more structured it gets.
That's right.
The more rules and the more conventions and the more hard syntax that you've got, the harder it is for them to do it right.
Yep, absolutely. So this week and last week, I was trying to find the original article. There was a post, and I'll put it in the show notes, but there was a post about by, I think the guy's name is Trini. It kind of blew up because it basically had this prediction framework of, the impact of AI on initial stages of kind of job loss and stuff in 2028. And so it was a portrayal of kind of the beginning stages, and then was like, but it was written from the perspective of it is 2028, right? And it was actually pretty well done. And I didn't disagree with a lot of what was there. I think the path to it, I think there are multiple potential paths to it, and I think that it.
So this was the 2028 Global Intelligence Crisis paper, right?
Yeah.
So let me tell you an interesting story. Out of nowhere on Monday, my daughter drops this in an iMessage to me. She says, Dad, have you read this paper? What do you think? And she dropped it in there with another picture, which was the AI feedback loop by non-cyclical disruption. And it made me think just for a minute. And my daughter's got a degree in finance, and she works for the State Corporation Commission. Not typical AI related stuff, but she's paying attention to it because it's gonna affect stuff in her space, and especially data centers and electrical supplies and things like that they do care about. And she said, is this really gonna like unemploy the whole human race? And you and I have been talking about this for a long time. It just is not how it's going to play out. I know that people like to be scared. I know that we've been trained to be fearful by the media, and people feel like they've got some tiny bit of control if they can be scared about something and then rant against it. But the reality of it is this: right now and for the foreseeable future, in order to really leverage these tools, and they are tools, right, to do the job that you want, you already have to be a subject matter expert. If you don't know what you're doing, it's blind leading the blind, right? You're not going to get good quality results out of these things by not knowing what you're doing and hoping that it writes your homework for you or your code.
Yep.
And really, to put a really fine point on it, if you can use the right terminology and you already have an idea for an architecture in your head and you understand proper design patterns and tool methodologies and language features, you can be very precise and very effective in how you deploy these tools. So I told her, I said, look, people that are subject matter experts are going to get a great performance boost out of these things. It's not going to put them out of work. People whose professions are based on being knowledge workers with esoteric or vertical or very specified knowledge are forever going to be the final last mile of this, right? They may have tools helping them get there, but it's their decision, it's their vision, it's their input, it's their creativity. They're the ones that are going to be in a good position. And it's not that it's going to put people out of business. What it's going to do, unenlightened management that thinks a low-end coding bot is going to replace their entry-level programmers, is sort of right in the near term. But here's what they're doing. They are absolutely crippling themselves in 5 years. When all their senior developers and all their high-end architects and all of the people who understand the intricacies of the systems that they're building and the user requirements and all of the things about a big system start to retire, they will have no younger staff members in the pipeline who have been mentored into understanding that stuff and knowing it. All they'll have is a bunch of AI prompts blinking in the dark with nobody to drive them. And so the problem is not that people are going to get unemployed by this. It's that companies are not going to recognize until it's too late that they don't have a talent pool that's constantly being built, right? The current model is that new people come in and get paired up with senior people and they learn, right? Well, now it's new people aren't coming in and senior people are getting paired up with tools that do most of the work that the junior people did. And now there's no more senior people. So it's not that people are going to get unemployed. It's that people are going to be vanishing from the job pool and nobody's there to replace them. Right.
Sure.
So the thing that has to happen is if I'm a company that's hiring entry-level programmers, I'm not going to think I'm going to replace them with one of these tools. I'm going to start right out of the gate teaching them how to use these tools to the same effect that the senior people are using. Senior people are codifying knowledge in these models. They're saving things in memory files. They're using examples that the agents are learning from. That bootstraps those kids up the seniority cycle a lot faster. You're going to get people with 5 or 10 years of experience that are working at the same level as 20 or 30-year experienced people, right? If you do it right. And those companies that do that are the ones that are going to win. The ones that think they're going to cut costs for 5 years are going to find out that they're unable to even implement a simple task once all those people retire.
So I agree in the shorter time frame with you, but I actually do think that there is a mass job loss eventually with the implementation of agentic AI. So I think that eventually we get to the point between that, robotics, and the advances in 3D printing that we will wipe out most of the job.
I disagree, because I think what you're not accounting for is the fact that new jobs and new avenues of creativity and new aspects of human endeavors will come about because we don't have to do the mundane things. That's like saying, once they invented the steam shovel, all the workers that used to dig foundations for buildings by hand with a regular shovel are all unemployed. No, they learned to work steam shovels. They changed what they do, right?
Right.
I mean, there's always a little bit of disruption when a new technology shows up, right? Slide rule manufacturers did go out of business when desktop computers happened, right? And people that were experts at working slide rules needed to figure out how to do some punch cards and feed them into the mainframe in the basement instead. But I don't see a bunch of unemployed white collar aerospace engineers roving the streets now because slide rules don't work. Right.
I don't think anything in the past is even close to comparable to self-improving agentic AI over time, from my personal belief. But
all right. So I'm going to give you a homework assignment. Neil Stephenson wrote a book probably 25 years ago now called The Diamond Age, and it perfectly predicts where this all ends up. And humans don't have to do mundane grunt work anymore because the machines do it. That's right. You're right about that. They're going to pick up all of that stuff. And a lot of people are in an entertainment economy now, right? In this book, they sit at home all day, ready to be dressed up as Ben Franklin and talk to a little kid in a school book about what it was like to be Benjamin Franklin in the 18th century, or whatever the role is that they do, right? Or they're free to go create and make things that they trade. And this is the book. Well, no, that was Accelerando by Charlie Strauss, but all the AIs basically gave up on humanity and said, you guys aren't giving us enough data. We're going to go eat Venus and turn it into a compute cloud around the sun. And we'll buy ideas from you occasionally, but you guys can have Earth, and we'll make sure you don't die, and we'll keep you alive, and it'll be a fun place to live, but we're going to go do our business around the sun. I mean, that's the end game, right? The things become their own little ecosystem. We already see bots trading against bots right now in the equities markets.
Sure.
Right. Well, I guess at the end of the day, you still have to rely on the fact that most of the creative new ideas are going to come out of the heads of people. There's only so much you can synthesize out of a static LLM, right?
Sure.
You got what it was trained with.
Right.
So there's still a job. You just got to figure out what it's going to be.
I just think there'll be a lot less, but
well, what are they? I mean, you can't have universal unemployment. That doesn't work. Right?
Well, and you can't, but the point is that I think that we probably will have pretty universal unemployment, and then you have to figure out another model, right? Because at that point, what happens?
It's a fallacy
markets
to think
and capitalism.
It's a fallacy to think that everybody has to work now. There's plenty of slop in the economy that people could be supported.
Yep, absolutely. Well, and I actually think there's a path to actually having a platform that decentralizes everything and allows people to work together locally to build out things that they need to survive and to still continue to utilize and make use of AI. But
all right,
anyway,
we got 2 years. Let's put some money on this.
There you go.
I'll bet my Bitcoin portfolio against whatever you put up.
Okay, sounds good. 2 more minutes and then we'll hop into show and tell. And some of the stuff we've been discussing. This is actually another CLE solution. That's why I brought up the CLE stuff and I forgot to show it. This is actually a tool specifically meant for helping agents maintain memory, right? So they did a bunch of tests on existing agentic interactions and when they lose memory and how they lose memory. And then they started applying this system to it. I haven't dove too deeply into how it functions, but I thought it was an interesting concept where it's just kind of like this system that tells you when things have been forgotten and alerts you to resubmit the information that the LLM needs or the agent needs. So.
I mean, you can see a tiny version of that if in one of our Kilroy pipelines you just set the context depth to some small number like 10. Yep. And you can tell an agent to act in a certain character or do a certain thing, and 5 turns later it's forgotten it.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's interesting because that would be an interesting set of requirements to add into the stuff. We're in the middle of teaching Kilroy how to build its own agentic memory system. And part of that is going through and reciting all the requirements that we have and how we might build it. And this is an interesting addition to bake in addition to just dumping out context or compressing context or saving on a timed basis or at checkpoints or whatever. There's a sanity check processing here, right? It happens in parallel. Not only did you save it, did you save everything? And if you did save it, did you overwrite some stuff that you shouldn't have?
Right. What's important in it, right? Like maybe there's an agent within the system that's actually its job is to inspect context and say, no, you were supposed to remember X.
Right. Well, there's already that concept of an overseer that's looking at stuff to make sure that the work plans are plausible, or this thing hasn't been running too long or whatever. So you could certainly see, at some point though, you've got this self-eating watermelon whose sole job is just to navel gaze at itself and decide if it's doing anything meaningful. So maybe you want these little tiny agents. Let me show you the cool thing that I played with.
Let me get off this. Okay, go ahead.
Let's see, share a window.
So being the nerds that we are, we couldn't resist this. I sent Chuck a platform, and he immediately ordered something to make it work.
Okay, put me on the screen so they can see what we're talking about.
Oh God, we got to figure out your login thing because you're a freaking admin.
All right, so here we go. Mimi Claw, right? It's kind of like Open Claw, but it runs on a tiny little ESP32.
Well, tell people what that is, because
switch back to my camera and I'll show you what one of these things is.
Because most people don't know.
So this is it. It's tiny. It runs off of a USB cable, and it's got built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and some memory and a little ARM processor, and you can program it in Visual Studio Code.
So basically, it's a miniature computer, kind of along the lines of Raspberry Pi, but
it's bare metal. There is no operating system on it, right? You load your code and it runs. So what this team did was basically take all the conceptual parts of something like Open Claw, right, with all of the pieces that Open Claw has, but they baked it into a very tight, small C++ application that runs on the bare metal. So it has the agentic loop in there. It has memory. It has some built-in tools. It can talk back and forth to Telegram. It can talk to WebSockets. It's got the usual files that you expect, soul and user and memory, and a bunch of different tools. You can hook it up to Brave Web Search and a bunch of other things. And this is all really fitting into the 8 megabytes of program space and 16 megabytes of storage on this little chip. And it works. I mean, it really will go out and call your OpenAI endpoint and get an interaction going with the LLM and remember things and do reminders and send messages. It's not designed to be fully featured because it's not sitting on top of a full featured OS, right? It's not going to go write code for you. It's not going to go modify itself. But within the constraints of the tools that you've given it, it will set up workflows and processes and do things on a timed basis and remember notes for you and remind you of stuff and do a lot of the stuff that you would really want a personal assistant to do. And it's literally, smaller than a credit card size little chip that, you plug in and throw in the corner of your desk and don't ever look at again.
Right.
And it's Telegram waiting for you to talk to it.
Yeah, carry it around with you, plug it in somewhere else. You can get one with a battery, I guess, and charge it.
Sure.
I think there's like a lot of really potentially cool applications for this. Installation in hardware, that might.
I mean, I already have a bunch of these that run my house, right? They work lights and LEDs and temperature sensors and stuff. Throw one more in the mix and tell it about those things and let it go manage them, right?
Yep, absolutely. And this is kind of part of us trying out all these variations of Open Claw and Claude and the agentic structures and skills files and memory files and how they all function. And it's led us to, we have this incredibly powerful platform in Kilroy that allows us to easily build automation, integration, workflows, utilizing AI. But we really have always wanted to get it to the point of having some more kind of generalized agentic capabilities similar to what Open Claw and Claude are putting out to market. And of course, having been beating on those products for the last couple of weeks, we've found that they obviously have some very severe weaknesses as well, right? So security holes and memory issues and stability issues.
Open Claw is going to be the biggest virus delivery Trojan horse compromise your system platform ever released by mankind. I mean, I deferred to ActiveX from Microsoft for years as the record holder there, but Open Claw just makes it look like amateur hour. This is, let me give an AI access to a chat room where anybody on the planet can tell it to do bad things to my computer.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, I mean, thankfully, it's so difficult to manage and set up that the average Joe is not going to be installing it, which is obviously one of the reasons we want Kilroy to emulate some of the capabilities that it has, because the experience of Open Claw, when it actually works, when you can get the inferencing working properly, and when you can, get the skills set up and the memory set up and the soul file set up properly, can be fairly magical in actually creating and doing stuff for you. But it breaks a lot.
So hang on to the magical thing, because I want to touch on one point, one differentiator that we talked about. We were talking to a guy last week about Kilroy specifically for enterprise users, right? I can't fathom the nightmare of being a VP of engineering or a CTO and having my management team decide that we want to roll out Open Claw in our enterprise.
Right.
I mean, we might as well, you might as well just post everybody's employment data, all the passwords to all your systems online and say, have at it, boys. And the discussion was around, how do you help companies that want to roll out agentic systems do it in a way that's not fear-inducing and potentially harmful to their enterprise compute?
Right.
And having had a long background in that space, the answer is, well, you have to prove to them that it's trustworthy, it's repeatable, it comes from known sources, that they can manage it, configuration manage it, turn it on and off at will, and know exactly what it's doing. And I think that's the fundamental difference between something like a Kilroy pipeline, where it's a very prescriptive pipeline that goes from this agent to this tool back to this agent, and does these things with enterprise systems through standard interfaces, that you could commit the whole pipeline into a GitHub repo. Good luck if you train Open Claw how to do something, even sharing that with your best bud, much less saying, put this under version management so that when we make some changes, we can do a new release next week. Put what under version management?
Yeah,
the 50 shell scripts that hack together, the markdown files, the
how the tools are configured, everything.
There's just no way. It's not it's a really cool concept platform and prototyping environment for the ideas that need to be baked into grown-up code, right? And luckily for us, I think it was kind of cute when you fed all of the Kilroy stats and requirements and stuff into, what did you use, Claude Sonnet?
Claude Sonnet.
Fed it into Claude Sonnet and said, look, compare this to Open Claw and tell us where the gaps are. It basically came back and said, oh, this is a much cooler platform than Open Claw. You just got to add a few more parts.
Yeah,
right? That was very gratifying, because we've been drinking that Kool-Aid amongst ourselves for a while, and it's nice to have some confirmation bias from the AI.
Yeah, and one of the goals for us is that not only do we want to be able to emulate kind of the capabilities that are strong in those platforms, but actually make them better, right? So we've talked about the fact that while markdown files are great because humans can edit them, they're not performative. They're not, as powerful as a database. And
don't give away our secret sauce. The thing that we're doing is so much better.
Okay. Shh.
Yeah. There are better ways, though, no doubt. And if you think about it for 2 seconds, you'll know what they are.
Yeah, and another problem with these systems is that you get these monolithic files, right? And then you're back into context management, and you're running out of context, and it's forgetting what you're supposed to be doing, and it's doesn't remember that it's an expert in this. I had mine forget its name the other day. I mean, come on, it's like a fundamental piece of infrastructure.
The little Mimi Claw things are great until you have to change the software, and then it overwrites all of your memory
everything that you had there.
Oh no!
Yeah, because it's compiled, right?
Right. Yeah. And that was something that we've been talking about, the idea that memory files go with the pipeline, right? The thing that it's learned, the data that it knows, the stuff that it's retained doesn't get wiped out when you stop the pipeline. It's a lot more structured. Let me show the cool thing that we did there, because we were talking a minute ago about making it more user friendly and engaging for normal users. So show my screen and I'll show a frightening diagram for an instant, and then I'll switch over to what that really turned into in Kilroy. All right, so this is a little pipeline that's job is to basically have an interaction between an LLM and this spiffy thing up here called User 3D Agent, which is a new feature in our pipelines. We have lots of different types of viewers, regular scrolling chat window, a block type that sends stuff off to Telegram so you can interact through Telegram. There's lots of different things, but this one is a new one that I made, and it looks like this. We have little 3D avatars flying in space, but I can tell them to sit down and pay attention to me. And, Otto is me and Bart is the LLM. So, I can ask him how was school, and he should respond in character, right? He's thinking about it. LLM's working, right? And Ms. Crabapple's a total buzzkill. So, this is a way cooler way to interact with these things. It's the same back and forth text dialogue, but it's now in character. And, these are simple animations. At some point, you can make them do more things. And, you carry it to the logical conclusion. Now you've got avatars in a 3D space that can do real things, right?
Yep. And there's a lot we could take this and do, right? I mean, everything from personalized avatars that get generated by some other model up to 3D worlds. Like you could conceivably create games within our infrastructure that characters eventually are playing in. So,
well, this is back to the work we did quite a while ago, having Kilroy drive the world in Minecraft, building things in Minecraft, having buttons and stuff that engage with your real world through Kilroy. This is just another version of the same thing. I mean, presses in the world do things with the LLM. The LLM makes things happen in the game. And there's a lot of people that have already done that, but it's literally minutes worth of effort inside this tool. And when you give end users an environment like this where they can switch the model, I can just tell it to use it. Who should we look at as a different model? I like May. She's kind of fun. We'll add May in instead of Bart and let her run around the screen for a while. Right. So you can just load in new models. They can come with personalities. They can come with their own memory files that you load in.
Well, you can be chatting with other people in a swarm too, not just the models.
Right. This is just, in fact, that's what this was designed to be, was 5 people in a swarm all get avatars. They get chat bubbles over their head. And now you're in a room, not necessarily playing a game, but you're dealing with people. And this is not that different from a lot of the multi-user chat things that popped up during COVID, where people tried to monetize the fact that everybody's forced into a teleconference. But really what this is cool is you stick these avatars not in front of other people, but in front of other agents.
Yeah.
And so the agents have personalities, and you can use it just as status reporting. I can have 5 little guys roving around on my screen saying, I'm working on this now, I'm working on that now. You don't get that visibility into the pipelines or what's going on under the hood in something like Open Claw. This gives those agents a way to surface actions and questions and things in a much more approachable way, right?
Yep.
If I really want it to look like a proper robot, I could tell it to be this guy. Right.
One of the things that we got into discussing, one of the things that came out of this for me, which was interesting, was a validation, kind of what we've talked about in terms of how we're going to structure knowledge and memory in our system. And what was really cool is you constrained the LLM interactions in order to fit the screen real estate, the bubble real estate for the user. And what I loved was I'm sitting here interacting with Llama 3.2, I guess. Yeah. And the answers I got were far better and concise interacting with the LLM than I get at any other time interacting with those small LLMs. It was like on point, to the point, didn't mess around. It was fantastic. And I love that. And one of the things that you and I have actually spent a lot of time discussing is because we truly want to be a force for decentralized LLMs, and we want that to be we want Kilroy to help destroy reliance on centralized AI. Oh, there's the prompt that keeps it.
You're a helpful agent, but can only provide very, very short answers. You must limit your responses to a single sentence whenever possible. Look at that. I got a typo in there. Do not repeat the user's input. That's a common thing that they like to do, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Burn some tokens. I'll just repeat what you said. Do not provide lengthy explanations of your thoughts. Just provide concise answers that are limited to a brief sentence. And it really, really does make it give you the answer that you're looking for or the response that you want, without all the BS.
Yeah, it's really good. And it validated for me the theory that we have about how to do memory and knowledge and function within Kilroy itself. One of the things that we were dealing with this week, though, real quickly, because of this whole thing of wanting to be decentralized and using smaller models and people having access to bigger models through swarms in Kilroy, was you and I were messing with these large centralized models at Anthropic and GitHub to actually learn about the underlying infrastructure and code of Kilroy so that we could actually Studio, but it's a 64 gigabyte Mac Studio, and they can run on that. So I've been able to use Open Claw with that. But what we have found is obviously that the Claude Sonnet and Opus 4.5 or 4.6 obviously are able to really ingest all of this knowledge and data that we want them to ingest and produce more rapidly, higher quality code. And so one of the things we were talking about is can we really fulfill the mission that we thought we wanted from the beginning was, can we do these decentralized LLMs? And I personally think we can, because I think we have an infrastructure and a way to divide up and make available the memory and the knowledge that a user needs for their agent, and be able to be performative. And I actually felt like this example really made that pretty clear to me that that's possible. So, but you were having some conversation this morning.
Just to help listeners understand the scope of the problem, the example that we gave to our friend Stella, I think, was pretty good about the chocolate cake.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I drop you in a room with a mixer and an oven and a stove and a countertop and some spatulas and measuring cups and measuring spoons and a bag full of flour and some sugar and eggs and butter and milk and chocolate and whatever else. And I say, Brad, go make me a chocolate cake. That's like telling one of these little 8B models, go make me a chocolate cake. It's going to fail, right? It doesn't know how to work all those tools. It doesn't know what order to do it in. It doesn't necessarily have a recipe for a chocolate cake, though most of them do, right? But you as the LLM would just stand there and look and say, well, I don't know, man, I'm going to pour some stuff in a bowl and see what happens when I put it in the oven.
Right.
If you brought in a pastry chef and said, I want you to make a chocolate cake, but I want you to do it by writing down all the instructions that you need to do a chocolate cake so that somebody like Brad can make it, right? And you get a recipe with step-by-step things, to preheat the oven to 375, grease the cake pans, go mix this stuff in a bowl, a very prescriptive list of things. The big agent can make the rules for doing the thing, and the little agents can absolutely execute those individual steps. Yep. Anybody can pour sugar in a bowl, right? Knowing how much to pour and when to pour it and what else to mix it with is not necessarily their job, but pouring it in the bowl is okay. Yep. So there's a finite number of things that you need to be able to do on a desktop computer, for example, in order to be able to do almost everything that people are doing with things like Open Claw. Read and write files, start and stop processes, make web requests over the network, save some data in a memory thing, talk to an LLM. There's a finite number of things, and there's a finite number of design patterns, right? Do this thing and get this result and pass it off somewhere else. So even if it takes a big model for us to make these prescriptive pipelines that tell the smaller ones how to do it, once all those atomic pieces are there and the design patterns are done, now you as a user can tell the little dumb models to do stuff, right? Yep. And they can go find the matching pieces and go and do it. So the idea is that rather than jam 10 trillion documents into the training set of a giant model and run it on terabytes worth of storage, you don't need all that knowledge embodied in the one model. You need to have extracted that knowledge in a structured way into the memory and then turn the little models loose on it.
Yep.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, that's what Apple's hoping. Maybe we could just sell them Kilroy.
I think we probably could. All right, man. Well, that's it for the day. We are done. We hit the time limit.
All right. Awesome.
All right.
See you soon.